It's a good tuna, but I think I paid too much.
I always wear my mask and wash my hands after going home.
I am the king of the ring.
Welcome to the Japan What Podcast, episode 193. And I am your host, Matthew P.M. Bigelow.com. And I'm coming at you from the Aizumicho Studios in Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan. The armpit of Asia. Covering AI markets, Japan Society 5.0, depopulation, migration, and rising conflict in the Indo-Pacific. Thank you for coming on to today's show, or coming along with me on today's show. No podcast last week. Thank you for those who reached out. Nothing big. We did hit number one in Thailand, though, on the old Apple charts there for places in travel or culture, one of those major ones. It's weird how that happens sometimes. Still haven't hit number one in Japan. We did get up to number 6 once. I don't know what all these charts mean. I just know I see them sometimes. And there's often times where we're down in the doldrums. We're spinning around like a water spout that nobody sees in the Pacific somewhere. And other times it's like, oh, look, oh, yeah. So number one, thank you, Thailand. But no podcast last week because I found more work, as they say. It's tempting to say I found a new job. That's technically true, but I am working in other things, so I found even more work. And then I had to start that work and didn't have time for old little podcasting. So taking a break from that, it is what it is. New work. It's in a WeWork building, and it's interesting because when I was working in big tech, WeWork didn't exist. It kind of began to exist when I was halfway through. Like this when it really took off. Big tech I was in 2015 to 2020 in Japan at a telco, one of the major ones, researching AI markets and trends for the VPs there and all that. Blah, blah, blah. It goes on. And now I'm in a WeWork. The WeWork had a massive international calamity. It almost collapsed, in fact. The CEO was going off the rails, and he was becoming like the mirror reflection of himself. Like that's kind of the way that he was taking the company. But SoftBank, which is where I was working, they bought WeWork, and they managed to kind of buy out or do something with the WeWork Japan. And it seems to be doing pretty well. The WeWork I'm in is very busy now. I'm in a WeWork. So thank you to the previous company I was at for saving WeWork, because now I'm at a WeWork. Isn't that weird? But it's interesting because it's totally changed the way that office culture works, exists, and operates in Japan now. It's 20 years ago, like when I was in my 20s. I'm in my mid-40s now. I'm 44 years old. But in my mid-20s in Japan, it was like just 20 years ago. It was suits and ties and very hierarchical. But now, the 20-year-olds that are at WeWork, and there's a lot of them, they're like wearing sweatpants and walking around with a laptop, and like they have free beer there from 4 p.m. It's like you can just go and get a beer and like just hit the button. It's like, here's a fresh beer on tap for you. They got Suntory Premium Malts and Hue Garden. What? I mean, I don't really want to drink beer at work unless I'm ordered to, and that's a good thing to do. But just after the shift, go up, slam a beer, get on the subway, and go home. Very interesting. So anyways, there's that. I kind of like it, though. I hope that I'm wondering, though, I guess the good thing about it is that it's distributed offices. So if you're doing a startup, you don't have to rent a whole bunch of space and have it go unused. Because I've been at offices and locations in the past in Japan where sometimes entire floors are hardly being used and you're just paying an exorbitant amount of rent for all that. And then you got to pay people to be in there and blah, blah, blah. So in a way, it reduces the amount of risk that a small business owner has to take in terms of renting space by the square meter or square foot, or however you want to tally it. But then on the other hand, it's like there's nothing that's centralized about it. So everything is shifting around all the time. And now all the documentation's cloud-based and there's access restrictions and stuff like that. Whereas before, you'd have the cabinets and everybody would look at the same cabinet and know what that cabinet was. But now It's like this is a file in the cloud and it's somewhere and it works. It's fine. It's just very different. It feels a little bit more discombobulated, to be honest. And I guess that's why there's so much like crazy enterprise level software that are in everybody's computers now, because that's kind of taking the role of the office. So like the office space is now in the digital cloud, and now you have to have all these services that kind of connect people together as they would in an office, but it's via enterprise software in the cloud. It makes more sense to me than it doesn't, but it is different. And it is pretty crazy how, like, when I got here, it's like, we will always wear suits and work in hierarchies because we're in Japan. And then 20 years later, it's like, no, we don't have suits and we don't work in hierarchies because we're in Japan. It's like, that happens all the time in Japan. Japanese people are like, we'll never do that because we're Japanese. And 5 years later, it's like, of course we're doing that because we're Japanese. Happens all the time. Classic example is Halloween. When I came to Japan, Halloween just wasn't a thing. It's considered ridiculous. We will never do that because we're Japanese. 7 years later, Halloween is like, Japan is the center of Halloween in the world. Of course we're doing that. We're Japanese. And I don't mean to insult the Japanese. I just noticed that that's kind of a trend. When things change, they change suddenly, and then even more suddenlier, I guess you could say. All right, well, let's take a look. We're going to take a look today at some Japan news, some supply chain wars, and some Society 5.0. So let's get into some Japan. Now, because of the Japan Society 5.0, which is like an AI society government initiative, it's closely connected with the World Economic Forum, and a lot of people will go immediately into denialism or raging conspiracy theories when they hear either of those. I just look at it as facts that they are connected to each other and they do like to meet each other. So today, Klaus Schwab is no longer in the scenes, it seems, because in the past, when the top people from the World Economic Forum would come to Japan, Klaus Schwab, for example, would meet with the prime minister. It didn't matter who was in office. Klaus Schwab would come and he would get a meeting with the prime minister, but that's no longer the case, it seems. This comes to us from the website, the Prime Minister's Office of Japan, japan.kante.go.jp. So this is like official Japanese government website. And it says courtesy call from was that Honorable Envoy? I don't know what that is. Mr. Borge Brende, President and CEO of the World Economic Forum. So interestingly, what I did is it doesn't have any kind of information. I guess Mr. Ishiba, the current prime minister, I'm not sure if he's a little bit more, I don't know, reserved. He's not so open. So the details on this website just mentioned that they received a courtesy call. But when I went on to Twitter there, I posted the link, and the CEO of the World Economic Forum liked my post on X, interestingly enough. And I think I was retweeting him, in fact. So I was kind of thinking, well, where can I get the information? And of course, I look on to the X platform, and there it is. So my quote says, my post on Twitter X says, the WEF president, Borge Brende, met with Japan PM Ishiba. And this is the quote from the World Economic Forum side. Prime Minister Ishiba emphasized Japan's proactive approach to strengthening partnerships and highlighted the nation's continued strategic collaboration with the WEF. So there we go. They're emphasizing the strategic collaboration with the WEF. I don't know why. I'm not sure why. I really don't know why. It boggles the mind as to why this is happening. Why? Why are you doing this? Ever since they wrote that book, COVID-19, The Great Reset, I have a very different idea about what the WEF is and is not. Previous to that, I was using the WEF as like a good example of AI trends because I was doing the AI research, and I was like, oh, World Economic Forum. They have all these interesting ideas for artificial intelligence, and they'd hold symposiums, and the CEO of Siemens would have a discussion with like some high-level bureaucrat from India talking about how like the difference between public and private AI approaches for large-scale government solutions could work. And this is like 2017, 18. I'm like, this is fascinating. Then 2019 happens, and then 2020 rolls in with COVID, and then Amazon recommends Klaus Schwab's book to me, COVID-19, The Great Reset. And I'm like, well, I like the World Economic Forum. I'll read this book. And I'm like, this is insane. These people are crazy. What's going on? Why are we dealing with them? Why are we dealing with them? Indeed. Interestingly enough, Borge Brende, I'm not sure how to say his first name there. He's Norwegian, as I am. My mom is from Norway. My grandfather was a captain in the King's Guard during World War II. And when he was sold out by his government, he escaped into Sweden by stealing a pair of skis and then made his way up north and back and went over to England and re-enlisted and continued the fight over there. So he was officially part of the resistance movement. So I have this ingrained into me, and I must hold that torch, right? So he is a Norwegian politician and diplomat, not my grandfather, but Mr. Brende, and he's been the president of the World Economic Forum since 2017, a member of the Conservative Party in Norway. This is from Wikipedia, so it kind of glosses over. So he's an ex-member of the World Bank from the Board of Government. And he's part of the Bilderberg Group. He's a member of the steering committee on the Bilderberg Group, which, according to Wikipedia, is a non-profit organization. And yeah, so he's he's up there. He's in the big club, and I'm not in it, but he obviously is. Anyways, I just thought that was interesting. We don't need to move on too much from there. Next article. Japan brewer. This is from the Mainichi. The Japan's national daily since 1922. We're recording this on December 18th, 2024. This one is published on December 15th, 2024. Kind of an interesting idea here. Japan brewer to create first space sake, that's rice wine, in history and sell a single bottle for 100 million yen. Yeah, 5 years ago, that would be roughly $1 million. Now it's probably like, what, $750,000? Maybe less. Sake brewer Asahi Shuzoko, known for its Dasai brand, announced on December 11th that it will attempt to create sake in space for the first time in history, producing a single bottle that it plans to sell for 100 million yen. Oh, $659,000 at the current rate. Oh, there's an image provided. I'll be posting this image of space sake onto the Japan What's official website at MatthewPMBigelow.com. I suggest everybody go there to MatthewPMBigelow.com. Check out the photos, the links, the show notes, and donation ideas as well. PayPal.me/JapanWUT. The company, based in the city of Iwakuni in western Japan's Yamaguchi Prefecture, will send the sake rice and the water used to produce the alcoholic beverage into space via rocket in 2025. The ingredients will be fermented inside the International Space Station's experimental capsule, Kibo, and then brought back to Earth. Production will be limited to a single 100-milliliter bottle. The idea was conceived with the concept of future human migration to the moon in mind. The use of the Kibo module was approved by the Japan Aerospace and Exploration Agency, that's JAXA, in July 2024, Japan's NASA, under a paid utilization program. Preparations for the launch are underway with the cooperation from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and the Aichi Center for Industry and Science Technology. Dedicated brewing equipment is now being developed, and it will be launched into space with the ingredients. An astronaut will mix the ingredients with the brewing water, and fermentation will then proceed with the alcohol content being monitored from Earth. I think that's the main reason I got it. How they're going to monitor the alcohol content from Earth. That means they probably got some IoT stuff going on in there. So that's kind of like Japan Society 5.0 in space. Afterwards, about 520 grams of moromi, or fermentation mash, will be frozen and brought back to Earth. Will it be pressed and turned into Japanese sake? And it kind of goes on from there. It's just an interesting idea. If we're going to be space people, we're going to have some way to get our heads screwy in space. I think the Russians have their space vodka. I've seen pictures of that before. No surprise there. Mr. Yuri spinning around when everybody else goes to bed, you know. He takes off his Russian scowl, drinks a few bottles of space vodka, starts spinning around in space, going, yes, can't believe this is happening to me. All right, there we go. Let's take a look at the supply chain war. Die for the war. Everybody move. Die for the good, for the good. Die for the war. Die for the war. Weird volume issues there. So there's the supply chain war, and I like to take a look at that. And the supply chain war it's expanding, and it expands in ways you'd never think it would. And sometimes the supply chain war focuses more on the supply chain side, and sometimes it erupts into war on the war side. So it's a kind of a working theory of the Japan What podcast that we are in a supply chain war, and it really accelerated at the beginning of COVID when China, the Chinese government, the CCP, locked down Wuhan. And Wuhan at the time was a major production facility for everything in the world, as most Chinese places are these days. But it was pharmaceutical, it was cyber, it was telecoms, it was chips, it was automotive. It's like if you had something in the supply chain networks, it was going through Wuhan. And then China shut that off during COVID and used that as an opportunity, in my opinion, to accelerate its takeover of the supply chains using Chinese ships, which they are the major producer of in the world these days, Chinese space, which is getting more and more advanced to link the ships up into space, and as well as Chinese telecoms, where the telecommunications equipment linking to the people, the Chinese people, and then linking that into where China is expanding into places like Africa, or where the One Belt, One Road policy is making deals like these so-called debt traps that you see everywhere. Well, China is building automated ports in these countries so workers can't strike in them and they can have complete control over them. And the idea would be like somebody from Sri Lanka as a tea salesperson. They list their tea on a Chinese platform, and some person in China who wants some Sri Lankan tea orders it on their phone. It connects up through their domestically built supply chain networks, their digital networks, their satellite networks. It's tracked all the way by the Chinese government, so they have ultimate control over it. And then they trade in renminbi, the Chinese currency, across countries, or they use the BRIC system that might be coming out, where you might not even use money. You might just barter through it, something like that. And that way it avoids the US dollar, it avoids US sanctions, and it creates a top-down controlled version of a Chinese supply chain network. So they're not going to try to compete with the American networks. They're building their own, but they're trying to now take more and more market share via this approach. It's government, it's military, because they're going to use the Navy to protect their supply chains. It's technological, and it's connecting the Chinese products with the greater world's resources that suck back into China, so China can increase its power, essentially. And Japan's not invited. It's not invited into the BRICS. It's not invited into the One Belt and One Road policy. Japan is thoroughly on the side of the other version of the supply chain network, the one that had been or is currently dominant, but is facing some structural damage at the moment, or some weaknesses, some poking and prodding, some people falling off the sides here, some people who are ditching one system for another, or opting to participate in both, like in Malaysia. But Japan is pushed up right against Russia, pushed up right against China. Japan is hosting the American military in like huge numbers, Navy, air, military. It's huge. And then, of course, Japan is part of the G7. It's part of the IMF. It loves being in the big club, and that's where they are. So the supply chain war, now, when the war happens, that would be like in the South China Sea, where China is trying to push around the Philippines, and then sometimes some war breaks out. But that's mostly due to supply chain acquisition. Same thing with Russia, Ukraine. That's supply chain. It's pipelines. It's resources. Same thing with Israel and Hamas. It's resources, it's land. And every time that these conflicts occur, they occur in places where the G7 and the One Belt, or the BRICS nations kind of they fall on either side pretty clearly. I mean, there's always going to be some overlap some of the times, but generally speaking, you could draw a line through the area of the conflict and put G7 on one side of the line and BRICS on the other side of the line. So these are the kind of the supply chain wars. And next one is part of that. Now, this is a big move in Japan here, and it says, this is coming to us from Kyoto News. Nikkei News got the scoop, but they want us to pay for it, and we refuse because they are part of the Trilateral Commission, essentially. They're big clubbers. I'm sure Kyoto is as well, but they're free, so who cares? Honda and Nissan merger talks to form world's third biggest auto group. Not a very good headline. Tokyo, Honda Motor Co. and Nissan Motor Co. are arranging talks on a merger that would create the world's third biggest automaker group by volume, a source familiar with the matter said Wednesday, amid fierce global competition in electric vehicles dominated by overseas rivals. But electric vehicles aren't doing well. They're only doing well by company, not by technology. It's not like it's watches where Rolex is a very powerful brand, but so is Seiko, and there's all sorts of demand for watches. I mean, the demand for EV is not strong in the consumer market. So the push for EV is kind of nuts because nobody's buying them. Like all the Ford EVs. I kind of compare it to like 10 years ago when the microbrewery explosions were happening and major brewers were trying to release their own IPAs. But their IPAs sucked because they didn't want to release IPAs that would compete too much against the flagship brand product like a Budweiser or an Asahi Super Draft. So they tasted a little bit like an IPA, but mostly not like an IPA. So these other microbreweries started doing very well. And that's why they were popular. They weren't popular because they were part of a brand. They were popular because they had a certain appeal. And Tesla has a certain appeal. It's not only an EV. You're tapping into an advanced AI network of cars that are going to be linked up by the satellites, the near Earth orbit satellites or the low Earth orbit satellites, all that stuff. The self-driving capabilities. That's the appeal for Tesla. And electric is part of it. And China's major electric vehicle brand, BYD, stands for Build Your Dream. And these cars are apparently highly customizable. So these are appealing to people who might want like 15 USB charging ports on their dashboard. Like they'll do that for you apparently. And China is known for being very flexible with its production capabilities these days. It's a giant appeal for major telecommunications and networks to kind of say, Huawei will make it for us the way we want, but Cisco and Ericsson won't. So we want to use Huawei, but then the American government says you can't put Huawei into your networks because they're going to be spying on you. We want to be spying on you. I think that's kind of the reasoning. So Honda and Nissan teaming up to be EVs, to me, is probably not a winning strategy. Now, there could be things like setting up a joint venture or sharing some of the production costs when operating factories, something like that, where there could be like not done. It's not going to be like Nissan, Honda, but there might be some overlap between them. That might be okay, but the main appeal here, like there's not an appeal for a Japanese brand of EV, just like there's not an appeal for a Japanese brand of drone, like China's DJI drones. People want a DJI drone. So I'm not sure if the idea of electric vehicles is the focus here, should be the focus. And if it is, it's because everybody's been so brainwashed by the demands of various extreme left-wing governments over the past 10 years that just say, we will abolish gasoline by 2035. So you better do EV now. And they do EV now and then nobody buys them. It's like, well, what are we doing? They're just buying mostly Teslas. And then even then, is everybody going to be buying a Tesla every 5 years like they were before with like Fords and stuff like that? So we don't know. Anyways, the article goes on. Japan's second and third largest automakers are considering the possibility of establishing a holding company, the source said, in an apparent bid to form an automobile alliance to challenge Tesla of the United States and Chinese EV makers such as BYD Co. Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi Motors Corp., which partners with Nissan, said in a statement that they're considering various possibilities for future collaboration, but no decisions have been made. Anyways, I'm going to stop it there. Major news today, though. Of course, my initial reaction was, oh yeah, EVs. There's so much demand for EVs that companies need to merge to meet the demand. Really? Look how many EVs there are. Well, we can't compete with each other because we'll just sell too many. Why don't we merge? Because there's so much demand, we have to merge. Yeah, there might be a lot of competition, but unless Honda and Nissan can release some sort of flagship appeal that goes beyond just like an H or an N on the front, right? Like a Honda motorcycle might have a certain appeal to it. And Nissan might have some sort of appeal to it. I'm not sure what type of appeal Nissan has. But BYD, the appeal is like, it's more than the brand. Same with Tesla. It's more than the brand. So I'm not sure if these companies can go beyond the brand in Japan. It's not really a Japanese way of thinking. Or it might be in 10 years. In 10 years, I would say, of course we're doing that. It's Japan. All right. And then anything else for the supply chain wars? I believe I have one more. Yes, I do. This is kind of, I created this contrast one here. So this comes to us from Reuters, which I hate. And it says rival LNG, liquid natural gas suppliers, Sakhalin, depleting fields. This is the website's loading up strangely. Rival LNG supplies, Sakhalin's depleting fields give Japan an exit from Russian gas. Now, it says depleting fields as if it's like global warming or we're in some sort of energy catastrophe when it's the exact opposite. There's never been more, discovering more every day all the time. But this article is saying how Japan should get away from importing Russian liquid natural gas. Sakhalin is an island north of Hokkaido. It's a very long and narrow island that exists right off of Russia's eastern coastline, like way far away from Moscow, like the one facing Alaska. It's around there. And they have a lot of natural gas, and they have some plants there. And Japan's been heavily invested in there because it's nearby, it's stable, and why not? We need it. So the government of Japan and a lot of the major industries have been investing heavily into there. But no, we can't have that. So I'm just going to read this, and I'm going to provide some contrast for consideration. December 11th in Tokyo. As Japan's long-term contracts to secure liquefied natural gas, that's what it is, from Russia's Sakhalin-2 project near expiration, rival producers see opportunity to fill the supply gap, even as Tokyo looks to switch to cleaner energy. The country's declining demand for gas, plus geopolitical pressure on Tokyo to curb its reliance on fuels from Russia, mean Japanese buyers may not want to renew all their contracts with a supplier long favored for its proximity and reliability. Why would we want that? Why would we want proximity and reliability? Well, because it's Russia. Oh, those Russians. When it comes to Russia, let me just say, we got to get really moralistic. We got to be moral. When it comes to Russia, we have to be moral. With Russia, we have to be moral. You see where I'm going there? With Russia, we have to be moral. I take a moral stance when I'm dealing with Russia. What about all those other countries? Oh, we don't have to worry about them. No. What I'm saying is with Russia, we have to be moral. Japan, the world's second biggest liquefied natural gas buyer, depends on Russia for 9% of its LNG. That's actually quite a lot, or 6 million metric tons per year, and 5 million come from the Sakhalin to run along the Kremlin-controlled Gazprom. This is a little bit controversial because when Russia went into Ukraine for its military operation, special military operation, and then the world kind of reacted against Russia, Russia nationalized some of its gas projects The project also, and this was one of them, but this project, the article continues, also has strong ties with Japanese industry, with trading giants Mitsui and Mitsubishi owning a combined 22.5% of the project. So they own 22.5% of the project. It's reliable, it's near, it's a stable supply, but when it comes to Russia, we have to be moral. This is the last one I'll read, and then I'll switch to the other thing that I have prepared. Sakhalin-2's big advantage over rivals is that it's located just a few days away from Japan by sea. By comparison, shipments from Australia, Canada, and the US are more than a week away. But with Japan's Western allies seeking to isolate Moscow over its war in Ukraine, that's the Reuters take on the Ukraine situation. I am not saying it's war on Ukraine. They are. Sakhalin-2 is out of favor, though the project is exempt from U.S. sanctions. So with Russia, we have to be moral for our energy supplies. And it says like we have Australia for LNG and America for LNG. But Japan doesn't only import LNG. It imports almost all of its energy it needs from all over the world, which is why it might be shifting back to nuclear sooner rather than later. But for crude oil, where does Japan get most of its oil? Well, it gets 39% of its crude from Saudi Arabia. It gets 40% of its crude from the United Arab Emirates. It gets 8% of its crude from Kuwait, 5% from Qatar, and it only gets 2.5% from the USA. So when it comes to Russia, we have to be moral because places like Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, these are, of course, bastions of freedom and democracy where people have long held the viewpoint of taking charge of their own lives for their own individualistic purposes and rising up against nations when they see fit and, not being ruled by kings and queens and monarchs or sheiks or whatever, because that is just moral, because we have to be moral with Russia. We don't have to be moral with China or Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates or Kuwait, all these other places. Well, why do we need to be moral with them? We just have to be moral with Russia. So when it comes to Russia, we have to eliminate our energy supplies because they're near and reliable and plentiful. But it's Russia, so we can't do it actually. That's the thinking that they're telling us. We're going to get almost everything from Middle East dictatorships because we don't want to interfere with politics. Okay, sure. What about with Russia? Well, when it comes to Russia, we have to be moral.
The fourth industrial revolution will enable us to create a new society. Artificial intelligence will transform the big data collected through the Internet of Things into new wisdom. Society 5.0, a technology-based, human-centered society. The fourth industrial revolution will raise our standard of living and solve various challenges we face. It will, for example, free us from the stress of driving, allowing us to safely visit anyone, anytime. We will have access to the latest medical advancements at a low cost, no matter where we are. AI and robots will enhance human ability and expand our infinite possibilities, helping us enjoy more fulfilling lives. Society 5.0, for the betterment of human lives.
All right, and that, of course, is the Japanese government's promo video for Japan Society 5.0. And just to tie it back to the beginning there with Mr. Weffer.
The Fourth Industrial Revolution.
That's the title of a book written by Klaus Schwab, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. So there's this weird link between the Japanese government's AI plans and the World Economic Forum and their continued emphasized cooperation, as was evidenced at the beginning of the podcast. But anyways, One thing that I'm more and more interested in terms of AI and AI surveillance, 看系系统主义, surveillance capitalism, which, depending on where you are, might have one meaning or another meaning. For me, it's just a lot of AI only makes a lot of money when it's used for surveillance. Otherwise, they're just funny toys. They're just funny toys. Make a picture of a cat riding a motorcycle, but the motorcycle's made of chickens. Here you are. Forget about it. I'll save that to my screenshots and never look at it again. But when you use it for surveillance, now suddenly it's, wow, look at all this money pouring out of this. But with Japan and its, this kind of actually ties into the supply chain war. Japan with its connections with AI satellite tracking, used for monitoring CO2 outputs or oxygen outputs around the world and trying to link it to a carbon trading platform, which those stock exchanges, those exchanges exist in Japan. Japan's also a big part of that. So on one side, you have the Chinese One Belt, One Road initiative, or BRICS, and it looks very functional, but it's headed by totalitarians. And then you have the G7 one, which is led by democracies or places with a lot of freedom and leeway to do what you want. But their visions for the future involve taxing the air and satellite surveillance and trying to get everybody to turn into like some eco warriors, like eco warrior or die. So it's a pickle. It's a giant, stupid pickle. But anyways, this one I thought was interesting because it folds into the AI satellite surveillance that Japan is increasingly getting into. And I think when you think about Japan being pressed up against Russia and China and being part of the G7, AI satellite surveillance makes sense for defending the supply chains because in this article, it goes into that. So it says, this comes to us, from spectra.mini.com. It's originally written in Japanese, translated into English with AI translation. And it says, using AI to track dark ships via satellite. It's a little bit wordy, and I'll be skipping around a bit. At any given time, there are around 100,000 ships on the ocean, more than half of which are cargo ships, moving cargo from one port to another around the world. But that number excludes illegal fishing and pirate vessels, which hide their identities. In recent years, advances in ship mapping technology using satellite imagery analysis have made it possible to pinpoint dark ships, vessels that try to avoid detection by turning off their automatic identification systems, or AIS or ICE. Earth's observation satellites monitor the ocean and detect ships from images. This is crucial in a world where more than 100 ships are attacked by pirates every year. Thought it would be more. Or is that just the number they're telling us? But analyzing the ships is a laborious and time-consuming task. That's where AI comes in to help efficiently search for dark ships. Identifying dark ships requires downloading high-res optical images captured by Earth observation cameras. However, due to limitations in satellite-to-ground data transmission capacity and satellite storage, it is not always possible to transmit all of these images to computers on the ground. Even if they could be transmitted, humans would have to sift through the vast amounts of data and carefully match the ships seen in the satellite images with AIS signals, which could delay the identification of suspicious ships that are not transmitting AIS signals and the intervention action. See, that would just be an insane amount of detail. It's just so crazy. But AI recognizes the pixelization within data images. So if you have a ship and it's just a tiny little ship, but you have enough pixelization in the camera, like multi-gigapixel, well, then you could zoom in on that ship really accurately and see it from space. And if the ship at the high zoom in resolution is still accurate, that means the pixelization is represented. And if the AI is trained to recognize that ship based on the shape of its pixelization, it would be able to pinpoint those pixels without having to zoom in. So you could essentially scan a digital image and it would pinpoint a variety or applicant or potential ghost ships or dark ships, whatever these things are called. And so you wouldn't have to sift through the data. the AI with its pixelization identification with computer vision programming, which is very advanced these days, would be able to just see it for you. This device, developed by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, here it is, is similar to other Earth observation instruments in that it takes images off of the ground, but what sets it apart from the other satellite the technology is that it can simultaneously process image data on board using AI. Fine-tuning AI using satellite data. I just kind of basically explained it to you. There's an infographic here that I'll be posting up on the website at matthewpmbigelow.com. So this program, which is called AIRIS, so AIRIS has been selected as one of the demonstration teams for JAXA's Innovative Satellite Technology Demonstration Program and is scheduled for an in-orbit demonstration in 2025. According to Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, the first application of this technology will be in the field of economic security, where it can be used to detect suspicious ships at sea. With illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing activities resulting in up to 26 million tons of fish caught annually and resulting in economic losses of up to $23 billion, it is understandable that economic security is a priority. At this point, it is expected that AIRIS will greatly advance maritime surveillance, strengthening the ability to track dark ships on the high seas and deter illegal activities. That's where it ends. Basically, China has these giant fishing fleets, and they work in cooperation with the Coast Guard and the Navy. And these are just called like fishing vessels. And they look like run down, rickety fishing vessels. But a lot of these have reinforced hulls. There's sheep's and wolves' clothing. And what they're doing, some people allege, is that they go in like groups of hundreds. They trawl the ocean floor near places that have good fishing zones and destroy the maritime life there. Just wreck it. They just torch the place, basically. They're arsonists, but in the water. And then what happens? Maybe that country now has a lot less fish, a lot less food. Maybe they have to import from China now. I think that's kind of the idea. So some people are alleging, and it's kind of in the dark because these are dark ships, that these ships go around, they hoover up a lot of food for China, destroy the habitats that are there, and then try to get those countries to have an increase of economic reliance on China. So the fact that Japan is pushed up against China, and Japan is one of the few very high-tech societies in the region that can handle this sort of thing with like the amount of smart people required to do it and manage it and operate it, and also have a level of trustworthiness there. One thing about Korea is that they kind of go back and forth between Japan and China, and a lot of people there might be favoring China. There's like this worrisome influence on the diplomatic level, but not so in Japan. So Japan is like a reliable partner in this type of endeavor. So in the bid to win the supply chain war and as well as expand high tech on the frontiers, Japan may have been selected as the candidate to operate this type of activity. But it also goes in hand with other Japanese venture companies and other Japanese corporations that are using satellites for AI and monitoring purposes in South America and other places to bolster its carbon credit platforms and trading exchanges and things like that. So this is just another dot in that wild field of shit I don't really know, but find exactly fascinating and important, because this is kind of a net and a grid and it's like tiny little dots in the sky that see ships like hundreds of miles away and report them automatically. Like these are intense technological operations that require our attention. And connecting but not connecting to that, this is just another one. I find that the chatbotization of the government to be a fascinating trend, and this one comes to us from aspicjapan.org. 9 chatbots for local governments, also introducing track records and implementation examples. So AI governance is another field that's expanding rapidly. It's expanding rapidly, not rapidly, but it's somewhat expanding in Japan. The reason I find it very fascinating is when I go to a government website, I don't feel like I'm interacting with the government. I feel like I'm interacting with the government when I go to a municipal office or a tax office, or I have some paperwork I need to fill out and the person is there to kind of help me with it. No one likes doing it, but whatever. That's kind of how I feel like I'm interacting with the government, is through fellow citizens that work for the government. And we all kind of despise each other, but find a way to not murder each other at the same time. So that's something. But with the chatbotization of municipal and government applications, essentially what we're doing is we are creating government avatars, and the avatars we'll be interacting with them whenever we want, but they might start interacting with us. What if you open up your computer one day and like the government avatar is like, hey, you haven't paid your taxes. Do you want to make a transfer right now? We'll open up your bank account website. You can just log in right now. Or you could face a fine of 50,000 yen. We're just your friendly government chat. So it's like the chat bot, we go to the chat bot, but what if the chat bot starts coming to us in the internet? You open up your computer and the government's there like, hey, would be a shame if you got a $50,000 fine if you didn't cough up some dough right now, huh? Just go to that bank. Just transfer it. We'll wait. We'll wait. We'll wait for 35 minutes. We're counting down. Here's a clock on your screen. Who knows if that's where it'll go? But the idea that I enjoy being with a human while I'm in a government building is not exactly my thing either, because I don't really care about them. My taxes pay for them to help me fill out the paperwork that I have to do for the government. So it's like they wrote me in to doing a bunch of work I don't like doing. But our chatbot's the way to go, because at the end of the day, I have to go to them in a specified building and they can't come to me. But if I start interacting with the government chatbots on my computer at home, well, essentially I'm opting in to the idea that the government belongs in my home. These are existential aspects of artificial intelligence that are coming into our lives right now. It's not in the future, it's happening now. Chatbots are being introduced with the support of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications. What they are actually being used for in local governments? Well, we're going to provide an easy-to-understand introduction with examples of their use and recommended services. So a chatbot for local governments is an automated conversation program that enables local government operations to be more efficient. It's a portmanteau of chat and robot. Yes, we need the need for chatbots in local governments. This is because of plummeting population. And I would like to remind the listeners that I've covered this a few times, and I went more into it, I think, back in April, where Microsoft and Google have announced that they're going to work with local governments to create AI governance solutions. And then a few months later, we have these chatbots coming out for the exact same things that they're talking about. Are they connected? I don't know. Recommendations for chatbots for local governments. So this time, from the many chatbots available, we have carefully selected those that have a proven track record of being implemented by local governments, are equipped with highly accurate AI, and do not require the burden of learning or tuning. And so these are just where the implementation of AI chatbots are being used. So NEC, Digital Assistant, NEC is a Japanese corporation, Osaka, Saitama, and Odawara City. Kotoha Chat, Kotoha I think is another one, Saitama Prefecture, Anaka, Nikko City, Mobibot, Fukuoka City, Ichikawa City, Nagaoka City, Hospitality Suite CX, Wakayama Prefecture, Setagaya Ward, Miyakawa City, OfficeBot, Chiyoda Ward, Hokkaido, etc., Bebot, Mie Prefecture, Nanto City, etc., Obot AI, Fujisawa City, Komatsu City, Takarazuka City, GovNext, Fukushima City, Itabashi City, Daito City, and Kuzen for local government digital transformation, Ome City, Mitaka City, Meguro Ward. So details of each service are introduced in the latter half of the article. I'm not sure if I'm going to go into it because it is very long, but it will be linked up at matthewpmbigelow.com. This is a very detailed and super long article, and I didn't want to go into it too much because it's just so long. But if you're interested in this type of thing, the link will be at MatthewPMBigelow.com. And another similar thing is the fact that this could be used for your government things, and you go and you chat with your government and you figure out what you need. Now the government's in your computer at home. Then you open up a new tab and you're like, well, that's out of the way. I'm going to go shopping online. This one comes to us not from Japan, but it could be easily implemented anywhere around the world. AI agents promise to lighten your shopping load if they can earn your trust, from Connecticut. But it's from the japantoday.com website. Online shopping often involves endless options with fleeting discounts. A single search for running shoes can yield hundreds of results across multiple platforms, each promising the best deal. The holiday season brings excitement, but it also brings a blend of decision fatigue and logistical nightmares. I love first world problems. I have first world problems. Quick, get the world's leading technicians to solve these first world problems. What about poverty? Fuck the poor. We got to go shopping. What if there were a tool capable of hunting for the best prices, navigating endless sales, and making sure your purchases arrive on time? The next evolution in AI are agents that are capable of autonomous reasoning and multi-step problem solving. AI shopping agents not only suggest what you might like, but they can also blah, blah, blah. So it says, picture this. You prompt AI to find a winter coat under $200 that's highly rated and will arrive by Sunday. In second, this AI agent will scan websites, compare prices, check reviews, confirm availability, and will place the order. Unlike traditional recommendation engines, AI agents learn your preferences and handle tasks autonomously. Looking ahead, AI agents are likely to not only master personal shopping needs, but also negotiate directly with corporate AI systems. AI feedback loops. It's not in the future. It's happening now. And I'm not going to go too much into it because it's another long article, but it's another example of how these large language models 5 years ago, it's like the Japanese, we'll never use those. But now, government's using them, shopping is using them. You finish your job, you close one tab on your computer, you log out from your corporate account, you log into your personal account, and you open up a new tab and just start using a different large language model to pursue some other digital need to get stuff that you want. Crazy. What time are we running here? Almost at an hour? All right, let's take a look. SoftBank, my alumni, plans to invest $100 billion in U.S. projects over the next 4 years. President-elect Donald Trump joined SoftBank Group CEO Masayoshi Son to announce plans by the Japanese company to invest $100 billion in U.S. projects over the next 4 years. The Trump announced the planned investments, which are expected to focus on artificial intelligence at his Mar-a-Lago resort. Quote from Trump, "He's doing this because he feels very optimistic about our country since the election," Trump originally said. Masayoshi Son said he wanted to celebrate the great victory of President Trump and that he will bring the world into peace again. After the president-elect noted the $100 billion was double an investment pledge Son made in 2016 on the eve of Trump's first administration, the technology mogul said he was doubling down. Trump, appearing to joke, asked him into the microphone if he would double the investment again to $200 billion. And it kind of goes on from there. I have this was from the Wall Street Journal, has the press conference. I'm going to play a little bit of it. All right, I got it queued up here. My computer just froze. Let's go.
Today, I'm thrilled to announce that SoftBank will be investing $100 billion in America, creating 100,000 American jobs at a minimum. And he's doing this because he feels very optimistic about our country since the election.
I'm now excited to commit this $100 billion and 100,000 jobs into the United States. This is double of last time, as President Trump said. Because I say, oh, President Trump is a double-down president. I'm going to have to double down, $100 billion and 100,000 jobs. But one more thing I'm really hoping is that this President Trump would make the world, bring the world into peace again. That's my additional hope. and I think he will actually make it happen.
I'm going to ask him right now. Would you make it $200 billion? He can actually, believe it or not, he can actually afford to do that. Would you do that?
Well, my promise is 100, but he's now asking to do more. I think with your leadership, my partnership with you, with your support, I will try to make it happen.
That's good.
All right.
All right, and there they are, billionaires, just laughing it up about the future that they're trying to make for us. But I'm being a little dramatic. It's good to see cooperation instead of bombing the shit out of each other. I swore twice this episode. That'll be the last one for sure. For fudge, sure. I won't be freaking do that again, you shark monsters. All right, so there we go. Billionaires laughing about their investments, but it's better than laughing about bombing each other or killing each other, which is what was been going on for like the past 2.5 years. We're killing each other. War. Let's get more of that. Oh, stupid Russians. I hate it. It's so cynical. Radicalized me even more. We'll go through some more technology trends here. We got a little bit of time. Another aspect of foreign cooperation in Japan is this next one from news.yahoo.co.jp. Go Japan Transportation and self-driving car technology Waymo enter into strategic partnership to test technology in Tokyo. Go, a ride-hailing app company, Nihon Kotsu, a major taxi company, and Waymo, a U.S. self-driving car developer under Alphabet, Google, the U.S. holding company of Google, announced that they have formed a strategic partnership. The purpose is to test Waymo's self-driving technology, Waymo Driver, in Japan. The project will be carried out in stages, with the initial phase starting in the city center in 2025. The aim is to accelerate the introduction of self-driving taxis in Japan, leading to improved local transportation amid a declining population and labor shortage. First, they will verify how Waymo Driver can help Tokyo residents and play a beneficial role as a public transportation. In the initial phase, Nihon Kotsu's drivers will drive Waymo's electric vehicles, and tests will be conducted with the aim of introducing self-driving technology to public roads in Tokyo. Well, if Honda and Nissan can convince Waymo to use their cars and then implement it with their technology, and then Nihon Kotsu gets a cut, that'd make a good business sense. Most taxi drivers in Japan look like they're 743 years old. You open the door and you're like, geez, I'm in a coffin, actually. I should be driving this guy to the morgue. That's how I often feel. Are you okay up there? Blah, 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 blah. You're about to die. Why are you driving? Because your pension's not good enough. And my pension probably won't be either. So that's the idea here. But I've seen a lot of insane bullsugar coming out of places like San Francisco, where these Waymo cars, there's like 40 of them in a lot, and they all get unleashed at the same time, and then they just create their own traffic jams, or their image recognition isn't powerful enough. So somebody will put like a traffic cone on one Waymo car, and the other Waymo cars don't know what to do, and they all just stop working. Stuff like that. This kind of long tail problem solving that Waymo hasn't really solved yet. And Google doesn't have like a strong reputation of unleashing technology inside of the physical world. Like in terms of your Google Calendar and your email and your Gmail and all that, very good technology. And search is dominated for like 20 years now. But in terms of just putting things into, like cars, it doesn't have a good record of doing that. I don't know why Japan is entering this partnership. Shouldn't they be doing it with Tesla or something like that? I don't know. Anyways, there's that. Moving on to the next one. I've been following facial recognition for a while here on the Japan Web Podcast. And the main reason is a lot of the stuff that we look at for for artificial intelligence tends to be kind of goofy and stupid or existential, and people like get doomer about it. Like it's like they're doom scrolling, like, oh, AI is just gonna, screw my wife and murder me after taking my job. Might be taking jobs, but the infrastructural applications that are being implemented all around us are only growing and growing. And as I've said before, it's a non-visual technological revolution where you don't really see it. They're wireless cameras with algorithms that get transmitted by things you can't see. And so we don't realize it's sprouting up all around us. Like if you look at, classic examples are like a big city from like 50 years ago, like Shanghai or Abu Dhabi or something like that. It's just a desert. Then you look at it now, and it's a thriving metropolis. And you're like, "How, my goodness, what a stark contrast." But if you like take AI applications and like before AI and after AI, it's like the same thing, because AI is like a camera and a wall, and you don't notice it so much. Or it's like a sensor, or it's a satellite. So it's a non-visual revolution. But anyways, one company that I've been following just based on research has been DXYZ and their facial recognition platform, Frido. And this one comes to us from Migaro Holdings, prtimes.jp. Group company DXYZ's facial recognition platform, Frido, will be standardized for all future apartments built by Tokyo Mirai's. Mirai's Holdings, a company that creates new value by fusing the digital and real, is pleased to announce that its group companies DXYZ and Tokyo Miraizu have decided to adopt the facial recognition platform Frido, provided by DXYZ of the Miguro Group, as standard in all condominiums that Tokyo Miraizu will supply in the future. Boom. They're going full bore. All of their condominiums will have facial recognition. So you want to buy a new condo? Well, you better register your face. Group company DXYZ has developed and is providing a facial recognition platform called Frido, which can be linked with various facial recognition AIs. And by simply registering your face on a smartphone app, you can link various daily actions, such as entering and leaving, identification, verification, and payment with facial recognition, realizing the connection of the world with just your face without the need for keys or a wallet. The Frido apartment solution, offered for apartment complexes, features Japan's first all facial recognition apartment building that does not require any keys, from shared areas such as entrances and elevators to each private area or door, making it possible to live with just your face. Number of buildings with Frido installed as of the end of November 2024. Can you guess how many buildings in Japan have this now? 143 buildings are now equipped with facial recognition locks. Tokyo Miraizu's self-developed brand of condominiums, the Miraizu series, are urban design condominiums that offer functionality and comfortable living spaces. By carefully selecting and developing locations where demand is expected in the future, we aim to create condominiums that meet the needs of both owners and tenants. And it goes on from there. So anyways, they're full on going into Miraizu, Frido, and things like that. And one more for DXYZ. Migaro HD introduces facial recognition platform Frido to the Park House Shinsaibashi Tower. This is in Osaka. This comes to us from diamond.jp. And the Park House Shinsaibashi Tower is a new condominium developed in Osaka City by Mitsubishi Jisho Residence, a subsidiary of Mitsubishi Jisho. The property will be constructed by Kono Ike Construction and is scheduled to be completed in early September 2026. So we can see that this company is not only going for one style of condominium, they're trying to sell it to as many as possible. Huh. Very interesting, huh? Next one. Coming to us from Yahoo again. Fare collection with facial recognition. Walk through ticket gates. Eliminate the need for ticket gates. Future plans for Suica, which is the commuter pass that Tokyoites or most people in Japan can now use for paying for tickets instead of buying tickets. It's like a card that you put money on. Aiming for practical use within 10 years. Expanding payments with new apps. JR East announced on the 10th of December that its vision for the future of Suica will be possible to pass through ticket gates using facial recognitions and pass through stations using location information, with the aim of putting this into practical use within the next 10 years. In 2026, they plan to expand remittances and large volume payments. And in 2028, they aim to make it a device for everyday life with a function integrating app. Suica evolves around a device for everyday life. So if you're like somebody who, some people don't want to use facial recognition, but it seems to be like that's the way it's going. So in 10 years, kiss your Suica goodbye. Your Suica will be your face. Kitamura HD introduces BitKey's Work Hub to its offices. 8 group companies enter with facial recognition, and 84% say it's convenient. Meeting room reservations can also be made more convenient by linking them with smart locks. So, this company is pleased to announce that BitKey's connection platform, Work Hub, has been adopted by the offices of 8 group companies of Kitamura Holdings. The system enables face recognition to be used to enter offices and conference rooms, systematizes reception, and automatically unlocks conference rooms based on reservations, improving the ease of work for employees and streamlining management through system integration. In the future, they plan to integrate Work Hub with the groupware used by each company, making it even easier for employees to use and reduce the burden on administrators. Register your face. You walk up to the room, scans your face, and then you get in. There's a whole bunch of stuff in large corporations where it's just waiting for somebody to approve something, and facial recognition could take care of a lot of it. It's gonna. It already is. It's not in the future. It's happening now. Moving on. Niigata Kotsu. Understanding bus stop congestion and user status. Face recognition system demonstration experiment to begin on route buses in Niigata. So, I've been covering self-driving buses in Japan for a while now. They're kind of boring. They're kind of dull. They're basically little buses full of 8 to 12 people. They take you from like a care center for the elderly to a station or to like a shopping center or something like that. It's basically seen as trying to get old people out of driving and into riding self-driving buses that they can reserve on an app or something like that. And I fully support it. But this one's a little bit different in that they want to understand usage. The AI cameras were installed inside the buses. Niigata Kotsu began a demonstration experiment using a facial recognition system on some buses on the Shinano Machi line and the Hamura Machi line from December 12th. The AI cameras recognize the face features of the passengers, estimate their gender and age, and use GPS function to compare information at the time of boarding and disembarking. By visualizing passenger date, it is expected that the usage status and congestion status of bus stops can be understood, which will lead to improved convenience. In the future, we aim to improve the accuracy of the facial recognition system and link it to a smartphone app to realize a walk-through system where you can complete the payment without stopping. So we also see it here. But I'm not sure if this is what it is. The picture is worth 1,423,926 words. And this AI recognition camera, it's a little bit different than the rest. Usually, like on the DXYZ apartments, things like that, it's a tiny little camera embedded into the door handle. And you look at the door handle and it unlocks. And it's stylistically integrated into the door. Like usually, if you think about like surveillance cameras, they're hanging from the ceiling and they're like rotating around. They're a little bit imposing. But a lot of this facial recognition cameras now, they're kind of hidden. You don't even notice them. You will find yourself going, oh yeah, that one's a facial recognition camera, but you don't really think about it. But this facial recognition camera on the bus, you get onto the bus and it's like the eye of Sauron staring at you. AI camera, here you are. So in my opinion, this is a normalization project where they want people to force the normalization of AI cameras into everyday life. They could have made this a type of camera where it's integrated and stylish, but no. There's like a building, like one of those buildings, not the Doomer buildings, but the brutalist style buildings where it's like, here's a giant building and it's imposing on you. This is the government. You better get used to it. This kind of feels like one of those things where it's like you get onto the bus, it's like you pay for your ticket and then you look up and there's like a giant camera. It's like staring at you. It's like, we're collecting your data. You better get used to it. That's what it feels like to me. Moving on. The last one of the day. Russia teams up with BRICS to create an AI alliance. So bringing it back to the beginning again, the idea of the World Economic Forum, the supply chain wars, private partnerships with the public institutions and government and all that. We're going to go over to the BRICS side of things and see what they have to say as kind of a bookending summary for today's show. President Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday that Russia would develop AI with BRICS partners and other countries in a bid to challenge the dominance of the United States in one of the most promising and crucial technologies of the 21st century. So, supply chain wars. Speaking at Russia's flagship AI conference, Putin said the new AI alliance network would include national associations and development institutions in the field of AI from BRICS countries and other interested states. Quote, Russia must participate on equal terms in the global race to create strong AI. It is precisely the advanced solutions that Russian scientists are currently working on, Putin told an AI conference in Moscow. We invite scientists from all over the world to join in the collaboration, he said. Supply chain wars. Western sanctions intended to restrict Russia's access to the technology it needs to sustain its war against Ukraine, that's the article's words, not mine, have resulted in the world's major producers of microchips halting exports to Russia, sorely limiting its AI ambitions. Russia's dominant lender, Sberbank, is spearheading AI development in Russia, but Sberbank CEO German Gref is his name, acknowledged in 2023 that graphics processing units, or GPUs, the microchips that underpin AI development, were the trickiest hardware for Russia to replace. On Wednesday, the bank said national AI associations from BRICS members Brazil, China, India, and South Africa, but also from Serbia, Indonesia, and other non-BRICS countries had joined the AI Alliance network. It said the network would facilitate joint research into technology and AI, blah, blah, blah. It goes on from there. So again, I'm saying this a lot, but these articles just kind of go off into the weeds and you don't really need to know what they're saying after that. But we have this alternative supply chain network. And one area they are lacking is advanced chips. Advanced chips from Taiwan are largely trying to be on the G7 side of things. Japan, Korea, South Korea, of course. We also have EU countries, England with ARM, and I think the Dutch have some as well. I can't remember the name of their company. So in terms of the supply chain wars, AI chips are really, really, really going well for the G7. But despite all the sanctions and limitations on Chinese advancements into the field by limiting exports to China, they are developing their own. And if China is an example of what it can do in the past, it could be an example of what it could do in the future, which would be able to produce large amounts at scale and then sell it to favored nations within its own ever-expanding supply chain network, the One Belt, One Road, and the BRICS. So it's all coming full circle, but this would be a long-term project. It'd be interesting to see if what would happen with Taiwan. Taiwan becomes Chinese. Would the United States blow up the manufacturing plants there like they did with the Nord Stream and stuff like that? We will have to see, but it's something to consider because the supply chain wars are real. So that's going to be Japan Society 5.0 for today.
The fourth industrial revolution will enable us to create a new society. Artificial intelligence will transform the big data collected through the Internet of Things into new wisdom. Society 5.0, a technology-based, human-centered society. The fourth industrial revolution will raise our standard of living and solve various challenges we face. It will, for example, free us from the stress of driving, allowing us to safely visit...
Crazy. We're going into a crazy world. All right, so for the end of the show, I have an AI song that I like to play where I put all the headlines into Grok, which is X, and I may ask it to change all the headlines into lyrics. Then I go and I edit, and I've been editing more and more of the lyrics these days because AI lyrics tend to blow. And then I put that into Suno, another AI program, and I have it make a song. And today's song, I think, is quite good. Sometimes AI will take you like on a real curveball sometimes. Doesn't really do that today, but the dynamics are great. And I like making my own lyrics because it makes the song eventually sound a lot more human. So make sure to go to MatthewPMBigelow.com to get more show notes and some more photos based on what we were talking about here today, as well as make a donation at paypal.me/JapanWUT. That's paypal.me/JapanWUT. Also, check out the Podcasting 2.0 infrastructure. I recommend the Fountain app or Podverse app, and you can send donations via the app to creators like me, comme moi. Bon, ça va? C'est tout pour aujourd'hui, minasan. Je suis fini. Et peut-être vous êtes fini aussi. Je ne sais pas parce que je ne suis pas vous. Et vous ne savez pas moi. All right. Thank you very much. Arigatou gozaimashita. Until next time, everybody, I bid thee a very heartful and cheerful Ja Mata Ne.
Japan's PM got a courtesy call from WEF CEO Mr. Brendan. As Jackson brews rice wine in space, selling it for 100 million yen. Trump and SoftBank, 100 billion pledged. It's funny, they are laughing. Just more billionaires joking around about the future they are making. It's not in the future, it's happening now. It's not in the future, it's happening right now. On the Japan Rock podcast, people want EV so much. Megacore merge Honda and Nissan, take on Tesla and China. A million middle managers will finally bail us out of the trouble we are in by selling motorcycles and little minivans to a plummeting population. LNG from Russia, Japan says no more. Sure, it's stable and reliable and near, but that's not good enough because morals. So let's get our oil from the Middle East where freedom is free like air. Like the air, the AI satellites are monitoring, finding new ways to tax the unbanked. A's watching dark ships, satellites in play. Governments using chatbots in a tech ballet. Shopping gets lighter if trust we can lend to AI agents, our time they'll spend. It's not in the future, it's happening now. It's not in the future, it's happening right now. On the Japan What podcast, people want EV so much. Megacore merge Honda and Nissan, take on Tesla and China. A million middle managers will finally bail us out of the trouble we are in by selling motorcycles and little minivans to a plummeting population. Facial recognition in our homes means we're never ever alone. Let's stick cameras everywhere. Normalize the government stare with the chatbots in the government. The avatar is made. Contact from our superiors done wirelessly with algorithms. It's not in the future, it's happening now. It's not in the future, it's happening right now. On the Japan What podcast, on the Japan What podcast, on the Japan What